The sun dipped low over the war-torn colony of Ethoria, casting long shadows across the shattered buildings and scorched earth. It was a place where survival meant everything, where kindness was a commodity in short supply, and weakness was a death sentence. Ethan, a boy no older than 15, had always been different. His heart, untainted by the brutal realities of his world, still sought to help. And for that, his peers mocked him endlessly. "Look at the little hero, offering his food to a dying alien," sneered Eric, a bully as scared by battle as his surroundings. His voice carried through the smog-filled air as he shoved Ethan aside, knocking the water flask from his hands. "Tell me, Ethan, do you think they'll thank you when their ships come to blow us all to hell?" Ethan dusted himself off, ignoring the cruel laughter of his classmates as they gathered around, circling like vultures. His eyes stayed focused on the small group of injured soldiers ahead of him. Aliens, not Varen, but a lesser-known race caught in the crossfire of the war. Their bodies were battered, and one of them had collapsed near the barricades, too weak to stand. He crouched beside the soldier, his heart racing with a mix of fear and compassion. "You're not alone," he murmured, offering a ration bar and water. The alien, its skin a mottled gray, gave him a weak nod, barely able to grasp the offering. To Ethan, it didn't matter that they were enemies, or that their species had killed countless humans. All that mattered was that they were living beings in need, and he couldn't ignore that. "You're wasting your time, boy," Eric spat, his words venomous. "We don't have room for your charity here. These creatures will turn on you when they're strong enough. Mark my words, no one will care when they invade, and you'll be the first to die." Ethan ignored him, offering a small smile to the alien soldier who clutched the water in trembling hands. "Stay strong," he said quietly. But as he turned to walk away, a low rumble echoed in the distance. The air shifted, becoming dense and electric. Ethan froze, looking up at the sky. For a moment, the teasing faded, the world grew silent, and he felt a strange, inexplicable tug, a sensation that something else was coming. Something big. The soldiers around him stopped laughing, their faces tense as they glanced toward the horizon. The rumbles intensified, growing louder and deeper, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run, to find shelter, but the others stood frozen in place. Then, from the glowing sky above, a brilliant streak of light shot down. A comet, perhaps, but it was far too controlled, too precise to be natural. It veered sharply, altering its trajectory midair, and then crashed into the outskirts of the colony with a deafening explosion. Ethan felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. His heart pounded in his chest as he shielded his eyes from the debris, a storm of dust and ash spiraling into the air. He stood there, frozen, a mixture of dread and curiosity gripping him. What was that? Then, through the haze, a figure appeared. A woman, cloaked in elegant, regal attire, emerged from the wreckage, untouched by the explosion. Her dark eyes scanned the landscape with a chilling calmness, as if she had known exactly what was about to happen. She was not human. Ethan could sense it. But it wasn't her alien appearance that caught his breath. It was the intensity in her gaze, the power that seemed to radiate from her in waves. And then, against all odds, she looked directly at him. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked. And in that moment, Ethan could feel it. Something ancient, something powerful, and it whispered to him, "You're the one I need." The explosion had barely settled when the strange woman began to move toward him, her elegant steps cutting through the swirling dust, as if she were walking through the calmest of seas. Ethan stood frozen, his heart hammering in his chest, his breath caught in his throat. The mocking laughter of his peers faded into the background as he watched her approach, every step exuding an otherworldly confidence. The others around him started to move again, speaking in hushed, nervous tones, but Ethan couldn't tear his gaze away. There was something about her, something that made his skin prickle with both fear and curiosity. She wasn't like the usual aliens he'd seen in the war. No snarling soldiers, No reptilian beasts or armored mercenaries. She was different. Her features were sharp, almost regal, but it was the eyes that drew him in, dark and infinite, as if they contained the weight of entire worlds. The moment she stopped before him, Ethan's pulse raced. She was tall, her skin a pale, flawless shade of blue that shimmered faintly in the dying light of the sun. Her hair flowed like silk, dark and nearly black, and her attire, flowing robes of silver and deep violet, marked her as someone of high status, possibly even royalty. But it wasn't just her appearance that made his heart skip. It was the unspoken power that radiated from her, like the calm before a storm. "You are the boy," she said, her voice smooth, lilting, and cold, yet something in it made Ethan's stomach flutter. His throat went dry, his words caught. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You helped him." Ethan glanced back at the injured alien soldier he'd been aiding earlier. The creature was now being tended to by others, but it seemed to pulse with an energy Ethan hadn't noticed before. He swallowed, unsure if he should answer. I don't understand." The woman's lips curled into a faint smile. "I think you do." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt, the ground beneath him suddenly unstable. There was something about the way she spoke, like she knew more than she was letting on, like she could see through him. Ethan tried to push aside the unease building in his gut, but it clung to him like a shadow. "I'm just helping," he stammered. "It's what we do, right? We help each other." Her smile faded slightly, and her gaze hardened, the brief flicker of warmth replaced by something far colder. "Helping is not always the answer, boy." She glanced over her shoulder, as if sensing the watchful eyes of the colony's military forces drawing near. "But sometimes it is." Her eyes returned to him. "You may not know it yet, but you are the key to something far larger than this war, something you must be prepared for." Ethan's mind raced. "I don't understand." What do you mean? Who are you?" For a moment, the woman's gaze grew distant, as though weighing whether to reveal her truth. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "My name is not important. Not yet." She took a step back, and the air around her seemed to shift. "I am not who you think I am. But you?" She paused, studying him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "You have a choice to make, a choice that could change the fate of all worlds." Ethan took a cautious step back, confusion swirling in his head. "What are you asking me to do?" Her lips parted as if to speak, but a sudden far-off sound broke the moment. An ominous hum, like an engine starting up, low and vibrating through the air. The woman's expression changed in an instant, her features tightening with urgency. "They are coming," she said, her voice now cold and commanding. "And they will not stop until they find me. You need to come with me now." Ethan's heart raced. Who was she? What did she mean by all this? As the humming grew louder, he realized something was terribly wrong. The colony's soldiers were on the move, and they weren't just after her. They were coming for him too. He opened his mouth to ask another question, but before he could speak, she grabbed his arm with surprising strength, pulling him toward the wreckage. "Trust me," she commanded. Ethan's legs burned as he was dragged along, stumbling over uneven ground, his thoughts a chaotic blur. The woman, she had given him no name, no hint of her true purpose, pulled him with an urgency that made his heart race even faster. Behind them, the colony's soldiers were closing in, their footsteps echoing in the distance. Ethan had no idea who they were coming for, or why, but he could feel it. Something far larger than a simple military raid was unfolding. The woman's grip tightened around his arm as they entered a darkened alley between collapsed buildings. She moved with purpose, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. "They cannot know we are together," she said, her voice low and firm. "They cannot know what I am to you." His breath came in short, ragged bursts. "What are you? Why are they after you?" The woman didn't answer at first. Instead, she paused in the shadow of a wrecked building, her gaze narrowing, eyes glowing faintly as she surveyed the area. She appeared to be listening to something Ethan couldn't hear. The eerie silence that followed felt suffocating. Then, without warning, she pulled him behind a broken wall, just as a squad of heavily armed soldiers rounded the corner. The soldiers, wearing the distinctive black and gray armor of the Ithorian Defense Force, moved in tight formation, weapons raised, their eyes scanning for any signs of the alien presence. Ethan held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest, the sound of it deafening in his ears. The woman beside him seemed to meld into the shadows, her body tense, ready to spring at a moment's notice. Ethan's mind raced. Why was she so afraid? The squad passed, oblivious to their presence. Ethan exhaled in relief, but the woman didn't let up. She moved swiftly, pulling him deeper into the alley, her grip never loosening. "Keep moving," she hissed under her breath, urgency pressing in every word. As they reached a hidden entrance beneath a collapsed structure, the woman stopped again, her back straightening as if steeling herself. "You must understand, Ethan," she said, her voice soft but edged with a strange intensity. "I am not just any alien. I am." A distant, thunderous explosion cut her off, rattling the ground beneath them. Ethan's body jerked with the shockwave, his ears ringing. The woman's face hardened in immediate recognition, and she began to move faster, her eyes now a deep, glowing violet. "They're already here," she muttered, more to herself than to him. Before Ethan could ask her anything, she pressed him through a narrow door, into the pitch-black interior of a hidden bunker. It smelled of old metal and dust, the air thick and stale. She sealed the door behind them, her movements swift and practiced. But as soon as she turned back to him, Ethan could see it, the deep worry that was almost impossible to conceal. For the first time since they had met, she looked vulnerable. Her posture shifted, and she seemed to hesitate, as if weighing whether to reveal the truth. Finally, her voice came, quieter now, as if she were unraveling a secret she had kept for far too long. "I am the Queen of the Varin." Ethan froze, his blood running cold. The name rang a bell. Varin, a race known for their ruthless conquests. They were the ones who had crushed entire planets, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. Why would a Varin queen be here, in his colony, pretending to be human? You're the queen." His voice trembled with disbelief. "But why? Why disguise yourself as one of us?" Her gaze flickered, dark and distant. "Because I have a mission." She looked away, her face tightening as if the weight of that truth crushed her. "But it's not what you think. The war." She cut herself off, clenching her fists. "The war is over. For me, at least." "Over?" Ethan repeated, confused. "But if it's over, then why?" "Because the Varin never planned on winning. They never planned on conquering Earth or Ithoria. They came to test something." Her voice dropped to a whisper, as though revealing a dark secret. "And I was sent to see if humans were worthy of something far more powerful than your people know." The woman, the Varin queen, stood motionless in the dim light of the bunker, her eyes locked onto Ethan's, as if waiting for him to understand something she had not yet explained. The silence between them was thick, almost suffocating, and Ethan could feel the weight of her gaze pressing on him, like she was trying to unravel the very core of his being. "Why me?" he whispered, unable to hold the question back any longer. "Why am I the one you need?" Her lips parted as if to answer, but she hesitated, her fingers twitching at her sides, as though battling some internal struggle. Then, as if resigning herself to the truth, she took a slow, deliberate step toward him. "Because you are the catalyst," she said quietly, the words carrying a strange, almost sorrowful weight. "Because your heart, your actions, they are not bound by the fear and hatred that govern your species. You are pure. You possess something the Varin do not." Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? What's so special about me? Her gaze softened, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them, before she continued. The Varin were not always conquerors. Once, long ago, we were a peaceful people, devoted to knowledge and unity across the stars. But a curse was placed upon us, a curse that corrupted our hearts, turning us into what we are now. Ruthless, power-hungry, and unrecognizable. Ethan shook his head, struggling to keep up. A curse? That doesn't make any sense. You're telling me you weren't always like this. The Varin Queen nodded grimly. The curse is not something that can be easily explained, but it is real. Over centuries, it has twisted our minds, eroded our ability to love, to care. But there is one thing, one power, that remains untouched by the curse: the human heart. Ethan's chest tightened. What does that have to do with me? The Queen's eyes flickered with something almost like hope, though it was fleeting. You see, Ethan, the Varin curse can be undone, but only by someone pure of heart. Someone who has not yet been tainted by fear, by the hunger for power. Someone like you. His mind reeled. Pure of heart. He was just a boy, nothing extraordinary. He had never been a leader or warrior. He was simply the one who offered his food to a dying alien. What did he have that could possibly break a curse that had plagued an entire civilization? I don't understand, he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. How can I possibly help you undo something like that? I'm just a kid. The Queen's expression softened, a trace of something almost maternal in her gaze. That's the part I didn't want to tell you. She paused, taking a deep breath as if gathering her strength. The Varin curse, Ethan. It cannot be undone by just anyone pure of heart. It must be done by one who has the blood of the ancient rulers, one who can connect with the very essence of the curse, of the power that once was. Ethan's mind went blank. Wait, you mean? She nodded. Yes, you are my descendant, the last living heir to the throne of the Varin. The world seemed to tilt beneath Ethan's feet. The air, thick with tension, felt as though it had suddenly been sucked out of the room. His pulse hammered in his ears, and his legs went weak beneath him. His thoughts scrambled, desperate to make sense of her words. Last living heir. But I'm human. How could I be your descendant? You? He choked on the words. You're saying I'm royalty? That I have Varin blood in me? She gave him a grim nod. Yes. A long time ago, a Varin royal and a human fell in love. It was an alliance that could have united our worlds. But the Varin Council grew fearful of it, and they destroyed it. You, Ethan, are the product of that union. Ethan's stomach lurched. He felt sick. Everything he thought he knew about himself, the life he had led, the quiet boy in a war-torn colony, now felt like a dream, a lie. His identity, his purpose was suddenly crumbling around him, replaced by a dark truth he could scarcely comprehend. Why was I kept hidden? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why didn't I know this? Why didn't anyone tell me? The Queen's eyes softened, but the sadness in them was overwhelming. Because the Varin Council feared you. They feared what you could become. So, they erased all traces of your bloodline, wiped you from our history. But now that I found you, she looked down, almost regretfully. Now that they know you exist, they will stop at nothing to control you. Ethan's head spun with 1,000 questions, none of them making sense. The Varin Queen, who had been so cold and mysterious, was now revealing the truth of his bloodline, his real heritage, one that tied him to the very race that had devastated his world. His heart raced, his breath shallow, as the gravity of her words pressed down on him like a vice. He wasn't just some boy from a broken colony. He was the last living heir to the throne of an empire that had ravaged the galaxy. I don't know what to say. Ethan stammered, the world around him tilting, then righting itself in an unsettling, dizzying rush. This doesn't make sense. I don't feel like a Varin. I don't even know what that means. The Queen's eyes softened with a sadness that seemed to reach deep into her very soul. She stepped closer, her voice low and full of empathy. I know this is hard to understand. It is not something you could have prepared for. But you are not just some heir to a throne, Ethan. You are the key to undoing the curse that has haunted my people for millennia. Ethan shook his head, trying to grasp the enormity of it all. But I don't even know how to control this power you say I have. I spent my whole life just trying to survive. I don't have the skills, the strength, or the knowledge to face any of this. The Queen's gaze hardened, determination flashing in her eyes. You don't need to control it. Not yet. You need only to accept it. Accept who you truly are. But what if I can't? Ethan's voice cracked, the weight of his confusion and fear becoming too much to bear. What if I don't want any of this? What if I'm just not cut out for it? You don't have a choice, Ethan. Her voice was firm, a command wrapped in gentleness. If you do not embrace your legacy, then the Varen will hunt you down and force you to accept it. They will manipulate you, use you, until there is nothing left of who you are. You will become their puppet. A chill ran down Ethan's spine at her words. The thought of being used, of being reduced to nothing more than a tool, ignited something inside him, an anger that he hadn't known he was capable of. But still, the questions gnawed at him. What was the truth of the curse? How was he supposed to break it? I can't do this alone, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't even know who I can trust. You don't have to do it alone. The Queen's tone softened again, her gaze locking with his. I will help you, Ethan. I will guide you through what's to come. But you must act quickly. The Varen Council is already on the move, and they will stop at nothing to control you. They will use the knowledge of your bloodline to their advantage, and once they capture you, it will be too late. As if on cue, the distant hum of ships reached Ethan's ears. Powerful, looming ships, heavy with the sound of engines that seemed to shake the very air. His stomach dropped. The Varen had found them. They're here, the Queen said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. And they won't stop until you're under their control. We need to move. Now. Ethan's mind raced. The Varen were coming for him. He could feel it in his bones. He was no longer just a boy in the middle of a war. Now he was a beacon. The living heir to a race of conquerors, a key to an ancient curse. The world had shifted beneath his feet, and he had no idea where he stood. Where do we go? He asked, his throat dry. Follow me. The Queen's eyes flickered with something close to fear, something rare for her, but it was enough to convince Ethan that this was no time for hesitation. The world was closing in around them, and he had no choice but to trust the very person who had dragged him into this chaos. They sprinted through the bunker's hidden passages, the sound of pursuit growing louder. Behind them, the roar of Varen ships filled the sky, a sign that the chase had begun. Ethan's breath came faster, his heart pounding in his chest as they reached a heavily reinforced door. The Queen pulled a small device from her robes, pressing it against the wall. The door slid open with a low hiss, revealing a narrow, dark tunnel leading into the depths of the colony's old, forgotten underworld. This way, she said. We have to reach the chamber. It's our only chance. As they descended into the dark, Ethan's mind whirled. The truth of his bloodline, the curse, the Varen. Everything was happening so fast, and he was struggling to keep up. Was he truly the key to undoing the curse? And if he was, what kind of future awaited him once he embraced the power buried deep within him? The tunnel was damp and narrow, the air thick with the smell of old metal and earth. Every footstep echoed eerily, amplifying Ethan's growing unease. He followed the Queen, who moved with a swift, determined grace, her every step silent and purposeful. His heart raced in his chest, each thundering beat reminding him of the danger that closed in behind them. The sounds of the Varen ships had only grown louder, their engines vibrating the very ground beneath his feet. They were close, too close. Ethan swallowed hard, forcing the words out despite the tightness in his throat. Where are we going? What's this chamber you keep talking about? The queen didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed ahead, scanning the dim tunnel as if she were anticipating something or someone. She was the picture of composure, but even Ethan could see the cracks in her calm. Her fingers tightened around a strange device hanging from her belt, its surface glowing faintly, as though attuned to some hidden energy. "We're going to the Chamber of Secrets," she said at last, her voice low and filled with urgency. "It's a place forgotten by most, hidden beneath the ruins of an ancient Faran city. Only a few of us know of it, and fewer still have ever entered it. But it's the key to everything. The key to unlocking the curse and to stopping the Varan from using you as their weapon." The words were like a bucket of ice water, freezing his thoughts. "Stop the Varan from using me," Ethan repeated. "What do you mean? Aren't you Varan?" She turned back to him, her expression hardening. "Yes, but not like them. I don't want to use you, Ethan. I want to protect you from them. The Varan Council sees you as nothing more than a means to an end, a powerful tool they can control. But you have the potential to end their reign, if you are willing to embrace your destiny." A chill ran down Ethan's spine as the truth began to sink in. The queen wasn't just offering him protection. She was offering him power, the kind that could reshape the galaxy. But at what cost? What kind of person would he become if he accepted it? And what was this chamber? What did it hold that could give him the power to end it all? They reached a heavy metal door at the end of the tunnel, a massive thing adorned with strange, glowing symbols. The queen approached it without hesitation, placing her hand on a panel beside the door. The symbols flickered to life, swirling with a soft, pulsing light, before the door groaned open with a low mechanical hum. Inside, the air was cold, the chamber vast and empty. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, ancient scripts, familiar but foreign, swirling in patterns Ethan could barely comprehend. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, a simple stone structure bathed in the eerie glow of the chamber's lights. Atop it lay a crystal, larger than any he had ever seen, its surface smooth and clear, but radiating a subtle, almost hypnotic energy. "This is it," the queen said, stepping into the room, her voice reverberating off the stone walls. "This is the heart of the Varan." Ethan took a cautious step forward, his eyes fixed on the crystal. It was mesmerizing, almost as if it were calling to him, a strange pull in the air that beckoned him closer. His hand twitched, but he hesitated. "The heart of the Varan," he repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. "What is it? Some kind of artifact?" She shook her head, her expression grim. "No, it's not just an artifact. It is the source of our power. The curse. The very thing that has corrupted my people for generations. This is where it all began." Ethan felt a tightening in his chest as the queen's words sank in. The crystal wasn't just a symbol, it was the embodiment of the Varan's fall. It was the heart of the curse, and it pulsed with a dark energy that made his skin crawl. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "What am I supposed to do with it?" The queen's gaze darkened, and for a moment her composure cracked. "Because you are the only one who can stop it," she said, her voice strained. "You are the key, Ethan. Only the one with Varan blood can destroy the heart. If you can destroy it, you can free my people. But..." She trailed off, her eyes glinting with something darker, more dangerous. "If you fail, the power it holds will consume you. And if that happens, you will become more than a tool for the Varan. You will become their weapon, their king." The weight of her words hit Ethan like a physical blow. The power to save the galaxy, or to be consumed by it. The choice, once so simple, now felt impossibly complex. The air in the Chamber of Secrets crackled with an oppressive energy, and Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his chest. The crystal before him pulsed with an eerie light, as if it were alive, as if it could feel his presence. Each breath he took seemed to grow heavier, weighed down by the magnitude of the choice before him. The queen's words echoed in his mind, reverberating like a drumbeat. You are the key. If you fail, you will become their king. His mind spun in a whirlpool of doubt. He was just a kid. How could he be the key to saving the galaxy? How could he possibly control something so powerful, something that had corrupted an entire species for millennia? His hands trembled as he reached out toward the crystal. His fingers brushed its smooth surface, and a wave of energy shot through him, sharp and electric. The room around him seemed to distort, the walls warping as the pulse of the crystal intensified. He pulled his hand back in shock, gasping for breath. Don't touch it, the queen warned, her voice low and tense. Not yet. You must be ready. Ethan turned to her, his mind racing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, he admitted, his voice breaking. I don't know how to control this. I'm not a king. I'm just me. I don't even know who I am anymore. The queen stepped closer, her expression softer than it had been since he met her. You are the last hope for my people, Ethan. But you don't have to do this alone. You have more strength than you realize. It's inside you, the human heart. It's the one thing that the curse can't touch. If you can unlock that part of yourself, you can destroy the heart of the Varin. But what if I fail? Ethan asked, the weight of the moment crushing him. What if it overwhelms me, like it did to the others? Her eyes flashed with a mixture of fear and conviction. If you fail, the curse will take you, and you will become something far worse than any Varin has ever been. You will become a tyrant, a puppet for the council, and once they have you, they will have the galaxy. Ethan's mind raced with the implications of her words. A puppet, or a king. Neither felt like a choice he wanted to make. He had only ever wanted to survive, to live in peace, to protect those he loved. But now, the entire fate of an empire, and perhaps the galaxy, hung on his shoulders. The sounds of the Varin ships grew louder, reverberating through the walls of the chamber. The queen's hand clenched around the strange device at her side. They're coming, she said urgently. We don't have much time. You must decide. Ethan's eyes returned to the crystal, its pulsing glow now almost hypnotic. The urge to take it, to seize that power, burned at the back of his mind. He could feel it calling to him, pulling him closer, promising him everything he had ever wanted. Power. Control. The ability to change the course of history. But as he gazed at the heart, he remembered the compassion he had shown the Varin soldier. The way he had helped her in her darkest hour. The way he had resisted the urge to hate, even when his world had been torn apart by their kind. The human heart, his heart, was the only thing that had kept him going. Ethan, you can do this. The queen's voice broke through his thoughts, steady and sure. You are not bound by the darkness that holds my people. That is why you are the key. But was he? Could he really resist the pull of the curse? Could he unlock the strength of his heart to destroy it? The air in the chamber was thick with tension, and Ethan's heart beat like a war drum in his chest. The Varin ships were closing in. He could feel it in his bones. The queen's words echoed in his mind. If you fail, the curse will take you. You will become their weapon. But the crystal, the heart of the Varin, was calling to him, its glow now blinding, its pull undeniable. The weight of his decision felt like an anchor dragging him into a storm he couldn't escape. Ethan. The queen's voice broke through his thoughts, steady and calm, though a storm raged in her eyes. You have to make a choice. You can't wait any longer. The Varin are almost here. He turned to her, his gaze desperate. But what if I'm not strong enough? What if the power consumes me, like it did to them? The queen stepped forward, her eyes filled with an intensity that silenced his doubts. You are stronger than any of them. You have something they don't, humanity. You have the ability to choose, to fight the darkness inside. And you are the only one who can. Ethan's hand hovered over the crystal again. But this time, it wasn't the pull of power that reached for him. It was something deeper, something within him that he hadn't understood until now. The part of him that had never given up, never let the hatred of his world's destruction consume him. The part of him that had helped the Varian soldier, that had stood up for others when no one else had. Humanity, the very thing that made him different. The crystal's light intensified as if it were aware of his decision, pulsing faster with each passing second. He could feel it inside him, the raw, overwhelming force of the curse, beckoning him to give in, to accept his heritage and wield the power of the Varian. But as the light swelled, Ethan's mind cleared. He could feel the Queen's presence behind him, unwavering, strong. But it wasn't her strength he needed now. It was his own. He placed his hand on the crystal. The moment his skin made contact, the world exploded into light. Pain shot through his body, as if his very soul was being torn apart. The crystal's energy surged through him, a flood of power unlike anything he'd ever experienced. His vision blurred, his body felt weightless, and for a moment, he thought he might collapse from the sheer force of it. The curse, the darkness of the Varian, seemed to reach into his core, trying to twist him, to warp him into something else. But he fought it. He refused to let it control him. No, he thought fiercely. I won't be like them. The power that surged through him began to shift, to change. The darkness inside him seemed to recede as the light of his humanity took hold. The curse was still there, but now it was his to control. The energy that had once sought to corrupt him became a tool in his hands. He felt the crystal resonate with his heart, as if acknowledging his choice, as if understanding that the human will was something the curse could never truly conquer. The Queen's voice broke through the blinding light. Ethan, you're doing it. You're taking control. The power within him surged again, but this time it felt different. He could feel the weight of the curse lifting, the darkness unraveling like a thread in his mind. It wasn't easy. Each moment was a battle. But he held firm. He wasn't going to be a weapon. He wasn't going to be a puppet. The light around him grew unbearable. And then, suddenly, it was gone. Ethan staggered back, breathing heavily, his hands trembling. The crystal before him had dimmed, its glow fading to a soft, pale light. The chamber felt quiet now, the oppressive energy gone. He was still himself, still human. The Queen stepped toward him, her eyes wide with disbelief and awe. You did it. Ethan looked down at his hands, feeling the lingering pulse of the crystal's power, but no longer a threat. It was a gift. He had accepted it, controlled it, and used it to destroy the curse that had bound the Varian for so long. But even as he stood victorious, he could hear the sounds of the Varian ships outside, the rumble of their engines growing ever closer. There would be no time for rest. The war was far from over. Now we take the fight to them, Ethan said, his voice steady, resolute. The burden of the galaxy's fate no longer felt heavy. It felt like a responsibility he was willing to bear. The Queen nodded, her expression fierce. They will come for you, Ethan. You're the last thing standing between them and absolute control. Ethan clenched his fists, feeling the strength of his resolve and the power of his humanity. Then let them come.